Um, I am Charles Elmore. I am one of the co-founders of the Tulsa Film Collective. I'm also a filmmaker and a working, film professional. All of those are words that are used to describe a job in this state that a few of us have held in an industry that is still in its infancy, still a baby. We're still nurturing it. And here are some of the caretakers, I suppose. Before we get started, I do want to point out and thank some of our supporters and our sponsors for this series and this event. The Tulsa Artist Fellowship and the flagship facility. They're hosting us here at this facility, as well as helping provide some of the snacks and drinks. And we're appreciative of that. Citizens of Sound, Mr. Will Rutherford over here and his wonderful crew are capturing all of the audio, video, ephemera of this event, and hopefully it will be sort of living in perpetuity out there in the digital spheres of the internets eventually. We also want to thank Crazy Eagle Media, as well as the Tulsa Film Music Arts and Culture Office. Those are some wonderful supporters, not just of our organization, but of a lot of film making and film industry development and et cetera here in the wonderful city of Tulsa and the state of Oklahoma. Now that that's over with and taken care of, thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for joining us with all of these panels and events that we've been putting on. And if you've been following us online, thank you for your patience as we sort of formulate and iterate and evolve what this series is and has been over the past few weeks. We kind of created these series at a bit of spontaneity at the sort of convergence of production that a lot of us are working on, and a lot of in-town and out-of-state crew that are coming into town, and hoping to have an opportunity to have these conversations about working in the industry, getting opportunities within the industry, and also sort of just getting like-minded people from Oklahoma or who've worked in the industry to kind of share their experiences, share their thoughts, and also maybe give a bit of insight to what they've gone through, and also maybe help give insight into what, if you're a working professional or looking to be a freelance professional or crew member in the industry, what maybe you can have a look out for, as well as learn from some of these or apply to your own career. And so we've been changing it up as we go week to week, because certain crew members might not be available or they might have schedule changes. And so we've been changing it kind of as we go along. And if you're here for the makeup or wardrobe or costuming, sorry, but maybe we'll talk about clothes, but it won't be in that context. But be on the lookout. We will have costuming down the road, and we will certainly have more of these as we go along. But today we're going to be talking about freelancing in the Oklahoma marketplace, also and beyond, because some of you are Oklahomans, you're also freelancers, but some of you rarely freelance in Oklahoma, but some of us do. And so we're going to kind of cover the gamut of the kind of career arc that some of us have had, and some of the work that some of y'all have found yourself on. But before we go down that deep dive, let's go through the introductions. Royce, I'm gonna have you start since you're immediate to my left, and that's kind of how we read things these days. So why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I'm Royce Sharp. I work as a sound mixer primarily, and primarily in the documentary space, although I've been spending several months out of the year, past several years, doing narrative television, thanks to our good friend Sterling Harjo. But I've been working with this guy for well over a decade, and same thing with that one, and probably close to it with that one. And Bryce, I've known you for 3-4 years. Yeah,
Probably.
yeah. And it's a delight to see every day, as is all of my Oklahomies on film sets. Yeah.
All right. Is this thing on? Yeah. I'm just quiet. I'm Bryce Redessel, freelancer. I usually am in the camera or like the genie world of production. I've been freelancing for about 5 years now. And I come from like a post background. So before freelancing, I was at an agency in New York, and before that I was in agencies here in Oklahoma. Originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma, moved to New York, was there about 5 years. And like I said, I was at a production agency there. But yeah, it's just been kind of a wide gamut of, editing, sometimes being a cinematographer, sometimes being a camera person, like camera operator, first AC, or even, a gaffer if I'm in the genie world. And I've worked with everyone here. I haven't worked with you. So this is our first time meeting, but always great people to work with. I think Oklahoma's been obviously growing in this space, but I've really enjoyed almost everyone I've ever met in this space. So it's been really awesome to see it grow. And yeah, so that's kind of my introduction.
Thank you, Bryce.
Sio Ganali, Jessica McKever, Dogwadoa. Hello, a very warm and affectionate hello, my friends. My name is Jessica McKever. You're welcome to call me Jessie. I've been freelancing on and off for the last 10 years, anywhere from field producer, line producer, editor, publicist, project manager, you name it. This last year, I've been really dedicated to it. So I'm also a co-founder of Tulsa Film Collective, along with Charles. Hi. Thank you all for coming to the workshop series. We're excited to host more and be gate openers as opposed to gatekeepers, and get people inspired and connected to the knowledge and the resources that are available, because as so many people have said, we're on the cusp of something really big here, and we want our communities to be ready for it. So yeah, so thank you all for being here. I am the founder of Strawberry Moon. I work to, shine a light on what's possible and to co-create a world that's based on abundance, radical love, and imagination. So with my partners, I work as a narrative change strategist. I program, I design programs for studios. I do a lot of harm reduction when it comes to Native American representation in the studio space, sometimes opportunity expansion, but we do what we can in that area. I'm a publicist. I support filmmakers of color. In the last year, I went to Toronto International Film Festival with the Native-led film, The Beguiling. At Sundance, I helped Lauren Waters prepare for her world premiere for Tiger. Give her a shout out. Woo! It was an honor to support that film. And then recently I went to South by Southwest, where I supported 2 Native-led films, The Beguiling again, and Ways of Knowing, which is an immersive documentary experience that showcases Navajo resilience in the face of uranium mining. I launched my company there at South by Southwest. It was great, in a solidarity happy hour with the Bliss Collective. And I don't know, I think, the resistance is resistancing, and it's wonderful to be able to, and a blessing to be able to be independent and to work in this space and to support projects as either a narrative change consultant, a publicist, or a producer that I feel like are going to make the world a better place. So, yeah.
Hey, everybody. Dylan Brody here. I've been working as a freelancer since about 2008. I've worked with all these lovely humans way too many times, but I hope to for many more years to come. So I've worn every single hat known to man except makeup and stunts to be the person that's sitting here in this chair speaking to you right now. But I primarily work as a producer, production manager, and then sometimes there's big outside productions that come in that feel like you'll set everything on fire if you even look at the budget. So therefore, I location manage on the bigger projects that come in. But yes, we're here to try to share as much knowledge as we can and give tips and tricks to make sure people feel very comfortable freelancing in this up-and-coming community here.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you for doing that introduction. And freelancing is a very interesting terminology. Like, in the corporate world, freelance is such a fun little ubiquitous term to throw around for both people that don't get, full-time benefits for working for a corporation, or they just have this sort of liminal everyday panic of not knowing how to pay bills or provide for things. But otherwise, freelancing is kind of just gainfully working on whatever craft you're pursuing and plying, but more sort of on a gig-to-gig kind of basis, right? Like, we're all sort of under the pretense of knowing that freelance in this discussion is kind of talking about not working for a company or being sort of on a salaried staff at a production company and then, shooting things on the weekend. It's sort of literally like when the job's over, you're either like hopefully like prepping for the next job, or you're like calling, asking, begging, borrowing, scraping, looking for every rock corner, whatever, to find the next gig, right?
Yeah, I often tell people I don't have time off. I have periods of time where I'm temporarily unemployed.
Just panicking. Your family's looking around wondering like, well, didn't you have something you used to do? Like, what are you doing here? So with that in mind, like, because, I have also sort of been freelance. I call it just sort of pursuing what I do as a job, but not necessarily employed by it, for about like 15 years. And that's, I've worked everything from like photographing like dental removing teeth to put implants, all the way to like reality shows that get dumped into the sort of like DVD bin at Walmart kind of thing. So Royce, I would love for you to kick this off. Kind of talk about the sort of courageous act of pursuing freelance. When you sort of decided to kind of pursue this specific field you're in and the position specifically, and then kind of like that first year of pursuing freelance and kind of what the process was like for you. And when in that process, did you kind of feel like, okay, I can keep doing this instead of like, maybe I should go back to the car dealership?
Okay, I'll start at the end, and
Yes.
I haven't hit that spot yet. Although I feel as secure as I ever have in freelancing, but I feel like it is hard to ever feel completely secure as a freelancer. Just you never know when the phone's going to ring. You never know when you're going to get that email. When it rains, it pours. But when you're going through a drought, it feels like it's never going to rain again. So yeah, it's a weird balancing act, but I would like to think that I've become considerably more zen about it. I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I've been freelancing for 18 years. Started doing sound stuff almost right out of the gate in 2007 on the first two projects that I worked on, one of which was the sequel to a PBS documentary about noodling, and the other wound up being an HBO documentary about the first 3 years that women were allowed to compete in our state's prison rodeo. Sweethearts of the Prison Rodeo and Okie Noodling too, if you want to look them up. So that whole first summer was me learning how to be a sound mixer in creeks and rivers or in the state penitentiary, which was sort of a crazy way to learn my craft. But like everybody here, have always relied on those people who have been doing it longer than me, whether I know them personally or not. There's a number of people that I've exchanged texts and emails with countless times, like asking for advice, asking for technical expertise that they may have that I didn't. It's easier to find those things on your own now, but back whenever I was starting out, it was absolutely not, especially in a niche like segment of the film industry as sound. But I was encouraged early on by James Payne, who also lives in Tulsa, and who was the first person to say, "Hey man, you play music, right? Cool, you know how microphones work? Great, hold this." And was instrumental in sort of referring some of the earlier freelance gigs to me. Another reason to reach out to those in your line of work that have been doing it for longer. Be courageous in that regard. I encourage everybody. But yeah, it was pretty rough at first, pretty scary. There was a lot of information that I did not have that I wish that I did in terms of what should I be asking as far as rates. Right out of the gate, I didn't even know that I could ask for an equipment rental. Like the first handful of like freelance jobs that I did way back in the day. There were a number of things that over time I just kind of had to learn, mostly by messing it up and doing the wrong thing, and then learning like, oh, okay, this is how I'm supposed to do it. But it's been a bumpy journey, but one that I wouldn't trade for anything, and has taken me to 27 countries now, I think. And yeah,
Excellent.
been a wild ride.
That sounds like a wild ride. What was your very first gig?
Oh, the Okie Noodling
The Okie
too,
Noodling?
and yeah.
Okay, what was your very first gig that was like your first freelance gig where you're like, yes, got it, freelancer, I'm doing it. They called it, they said yes to the rate, they sent me a schedule, and then you're like, this is not a good job. But I got to do it anyways. Can you?
The very first job that ever paid to travel me to another city, which kind of felt like, oh my gosh, like maybe I'm doing this, like I'm a real professional, was a reality show that was in its 8th season, although I'd never heard of it, called Whose Wedding Is It Anyway? Where
top tier.
Absolutely. But through that, actually wound up meeting a couple of people that, like, you never know who you're going to meet day to day in the film business, whether it's a PA or somebody who's been a producer director for decades, who all of a sudden is going to maybe change the trajectory of your career.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point of freelancing is like your connections is kind of your world, and how you treat the people around you is usually going to reciprocate to you. So I think that's just a really important that you're to that.
Could not agree more.
Yeah, and I'll actually just with that, I want to throw this to Dylan because I think Dylan has this very interesting freelance position because you're somebody who kind of really helps get a lot of people opportunities, whether it's corporate work, whether it's commercials. Like sometimes you'll call and say like, "There's a Super Bowl commercial. Can you do a Super Bowl commercial in February?" And so, but then also sometimes it's like I'm going out on the road to go location scout for Clint Eastwood, or I'm going out of town to work on a feature for this. So you're kind of getting your own freelance work, but you're also helping so many other sort of people within the network here in the film video production system in Oklahoma and Tulsa. Like, talk about that sort of network and building that community. And if you are planning to sort of pursue a sort of freelance career where the relationships are very vital and important to keeping a sustainability, sort of how you kind of cultivated and developed that. And especially as it pertains to working in Oklahoma, where like, it's either you are sort of stuck to the corporatized pathway and you're doing industrial or corporate or sort of extremely agency adjacent work.
Not that there's anything wrong.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. I've spent plenty of years freelancing in that system.
I still do that.
Yeah, but with that, you have a pretty good sort of ear to the rail, as it were, about what's going on and also how to find that work. So maybe you could speak to that as far as how that's helped develop and build a network and also provide those freelance opportunities.
Okay, so if this gets really rambly, just like throw something at me, just in case.
Oh, I have ADHD, so I'm not going to pay attention.
Yes. All right. Okay, so I sort of fell into this producer production manager world unintentionally. Started out in a time where the film industry was super microscopic here. Like I studied IT in college because the film industry just didn't exist. I didn't even think I could make movies, which were my passion. I worked in the IT field for years, and then around 2008, I saw that there was like a little bit of a pulse in the industry here, and I thought, like, if I don't try to make a change in my life, I'll regret it forever. And then at that point, I found a director that had a short film that had been sitting on the shelf that Mr. Sterling Harjo had shot, and that's the first time that we had really met. It was about a dunk tank clown at the Tulsa State Fair called Sinking Bobo, and then that my first year of freelancing, I made $0. And technically, to spending money trying to get to the job and doing everything, I made $-. But it was my passion. This was what I was like, oh my God, this is my chance. And so that got us on the film festival circuit. I got to see my name in the credits, and then just that was the moment that catalyzed. It's like, oh yeah, this is what I need to be doing. I just have no idea how the hell I'm going to do this. And so toiled in obscurity for years after that. It was like another 4 years of grinding, taking every single job, no matter what department it was, until I landed on a set that actually had a walkie-talkie on it. So like I hear a lot of people, especially early on in their careers, just like, I'm not successful after 1 year. I'm just going to pack up the truck and go back home and go work on the farm again. And it's like, that's not the case. There's like a lot of grinding that has to go into this. And it is this delicate balance of understanding that you're like, yes, you have to live below your means, and you need to be looking forward and constantly working on your connections and everything. But you absolutely can make the dream happen. But there is a lot of hard work and diplomacy and grinding. Like, you cannot be afraid to grind. You cannot be afraid to ask. I say this constantly until the point where I feel like I'm a broken record, but it's always a no if you don't try. Just try. If you fail, keep trying. Because if you fail, you're at the exact same spot you were. You're not any less. Try again. And so I was grinding for years. I met my mentor on a set of a horror movie that Charles and I were on. And I guess that was 2013? Was that?
I think so.
Yeah,
I guess.
2013.
I don't know.
I was legitimately working my butt off on that set. I lost 15 pounds that I didn't have to lose working off a 26-foot box truck that had the entire production on it, including a 200-pound cauldron that the director.
The only thing it didn't have was decision making on how to pick a shot.
And yes, like there was this 200-pound cauldron that like the director wanted in every shot that we never used, and I moved that thing constantly up and off this 26-foot box truck that did not have a lift gate, and so. But I impressed someone along the way, and they brought me out to LA and work and try to help them start their production company and work on some features with them out there. And I got used and abused in the system out there. And then I had this reckoning where it's like, do I stay being a set PA for years and also getting used and abused in the process, or do I try to like do something back home? So I came back to see my family, and this was around 2014 now. And that is when Sterling and I started a collaborative relationship with Miko in 2014. And that's when I was also given the first taste of responsibility as well. And these two.
He knocked it out of the park.
Oh, well, thank you, Royce. And these lovely people here at the end, like we really don't like to work without each other now from then. And that's one of another tip here is just like find your family, build your family, find the people that you have ease creating with, and then you will not hate a single day of work after that. And so to get to the larger point of what Charles was talking about here, that was the crystallizing moment of realizing that there was a bigger picture at play. Because again, it's 2014, still a microcosm, now a decade later for what we are now. We didn't have the resources, we didn't have the know-how to see what everything would become, but we kind of knew like we don't have this, we don't have this, we don't have this, we don't have this crew-wise, we don't have this vendor-wise, we don't have this permitting-wise, we don't have this location-wise. Again, we weren't really sure how to institute it, but we could see bigger picture down the line of what we needed. And so that is what crystallized a lot of the freelancing world here is just me realizing that like we have to empower local creators to tell local stories and build our local community, but we don't have the things that we need. And then at this point, it's just this battlefield of taking every job that comes down the line. And again, something that we'll probably dive into on this panel here is like, it's okay to say no sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
So you will continue to work again. The sun will set, the sun will rise, and you will live again to work again. So don't feel like you have to say yes to something that's going to abuse you.
You can also just say that you're booked.
Oh yeah, that's a
Just
great
throwing that out
response.
there.
That's a great response. Oh, I'm sorry.
Say that you're booked. Don't.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sorry, dog. But we were able to see the bigger picture, and then that created and again, I just unintentionally became a producer, production manager. I was just having a blast on set, doing whatever job I could. Like, oh, I'm helping with lights. So I'm helping with camera, just like you name it. Charles and I, we were on a reality show right after Miko in 2014. They hooked me with like, oh, we're going to call you a producer. We're also going to pay you a painfully low rate, but this is going to get me into the Producers Guild. And it was going to be originally just a few months, turned into a year-long gig. At one stretch where I worked, again...
That wasn't like, that's not a good thing. That wasn't like he did so good that let him work for a year. It was, it fell off the rails and down a hill and exploded, and Dylan had to pick up the box.
And the fire is still smoldering. And so we were, it was supposed to be just a few months, but it ended up ballooning into a year-long gig of abuse. There was this one stretch where I worked 12, 15 hours a day, 6 months straight, 7 days a week. It was essentially 5 guys making an entire season of television because they just kept firing directors. And then, so I originally just started out being what I thought was just going to be the producer on it, but little did I realize that I eventually had to become the first AD. I made every single call sheet. I was the producer production manager on the ground. I also ended up having to pick up a camera and shoot a lot of it was a house flipping reality show. Had to do a lot of the camera work. The one person that we did not hire, our DIT, was arguably the most inept human I've ever met in my life. We had to fire him, so I became the DIT as well. I was also childcare.
He tore his ACL while going to an audition or a walk-on audition for the Tulsa soccer professional team, and tore his ACL and had to go to the hospital while he should have been downloading media from like a day's worth of shooting in Broken Arrow. And then he just worked his way up to better positions after that. So anyway.
True. Also, be careful what you're good at.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then people will ask you to do those things.
I
And
gotta stop
Dylan
being so
has the
reliable.
curse of being good at everything and always delivering no matter what, even if it seems like an impossibility.
This day forward, I'm
To his credit.
no longer going to be clutch. Sorry, everybody. So we just got used and abused on that gig, but that also really helped instill the vibe that we have to this day in terms of like Sterling Harjo sets. We've had productions over the years, even ones after that, where we were just legitimately cattle. We were a cog in the machine that can be used until it absolutely breaks, and then they just find another cog. And we knew there had to be a better way to create than that. And so that's a vibe that we try to instill even to this day. And so like we see the bigger picture, and like we're just toiling in a market that is just very slowly growing. Every year you get like a little bit more crew. You get another vendor that's popping up. You have more locations in your back pocket. Like we were able to even get Minari to come to Tulsa because it could no longer film in Atlanta. And like just because of our infrastructure, our locations, we were able to sell the director on. It's like, oh yeah, you can come do this in Oklahoma. We've got the infrastructure to support this. So like every year the building blocks just get a little bit better. And the seeds that we saw that needed to be planted back during Miko didn't really start to flourish until 2020 with Reservation Dogs, because that is then long form television that lets us have a larger crew for a longer period of time, getting more training, bringing in apprentices that we can train up. There are so many people that are among our workforce now that were people that just vocalized their wants and their needs. Again, it's like it's always a no if you don't try. There's people that came to us in coffee shops and bars and restaurants, and they're just like, hey, I want to work in the film industry. I have no idea how to do so. Can I do this thing?
Both members of my sound team on The Sensitive Kind right now are both people that one day on a film set came up to me and were like, hey, I'd really like to do this. What do I do? And I'm like, well, here's my contact info. Like, reach out to me. Or like, what are you doing right now? Like, you're a PA? Well, I'm on this indie film. I could use a boom op. So you're that now. Congratulations. Like, let's go.
And from a producer production manager standpoint, like I would rather hire someone with a good heart and a willingness to work than someone that's been doing it for years and is impossible to work with and is super entitled.
Enthusiasm counts for a lot.
And yes, hard work, being a good person will get you so much further than being an asshole.
Well, and also as a producer, UPM, whatever, you're also having a lot of people come to you, whether it's the local independent short film producer, director who hears your name and says, you're the guy everyone tells me to go to, or even someone from out of state that says like, oh, the film office told me you're the guy to talk to. You're also hearing about like, this short film needs a producer, that short film needs sound op.
There's one that's filming right now while we're speaking on this panel that is the subject of exactly what you're talking about.
Well, that's all very fast, excellent. And one of the things you said earlier about, kind of, especially in this market and in Oklahoma and in Tulsa, like seeing the positions that they don't have a lot of and trying to find ways to either expand or sort of improve or curate and uplift more people in that position. Jesse, this is going to be a question for you. You're kind of innovating and sort of leading in a way, kind of creating your own position and kind of going into the representing films and with Strawberry Moon. Kind of talk about that and sort of, there's not a lot of PR firms. There's not a lot of firms or people representing indigenous film or BIPOC film or sort of film that are trying to sort of be positive and equitable and all of the, great work. But talk about kind of deciding to go in that direction and sort of doing it as a freelancer, like what that looks like. Are you calling people every day, like cultivating a lot of previous relationships and sort of saying, hey, what do you have going to festivals? Can I help you? Or do you need a sort of impact producer? Like kind of talk to us about kind of your pursuit as a freelancer in that specific sector.
Well, this is going to sound, does that sound okay?
Me?
Okay. Well, I've
Everybody
been
point your mic away.
building my relationships, I will say, for a long time, and how I present myself in the world for a long time. So this is going to sound shitty. I don't mean it to sound shitty, but I'm not having to reach out to call a lot of people to do this work. They're reaching out to me, and I think that's like when you spend a lot of time building up your reputation, building up your relationships, and you're impeccable with your word, meaning you don't overpromise and underdeliver, and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you find your niche, then the calls will come. I mean, that doesn't always happen. And right now I'm in a position where it's feast over famine, which is wonderful. And I know it's not always going to be that way, which is why I'm strategic with my time and my energy and my projects to make sure that I always have pivots ready to go. Yeah, but it's ever since I've jumped on my own after resigning from Illuminative last summer, things have flowed pretty seamlessly, which is wonderful. So I've had a lot of word of mouth recommendations, and I don't know, I'm booked, which is
Yeah.
great. But I will
One quick
say,
thing I
oh
just
no,
want
go
to
ahead.
touch on here is like you mentioned trust.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
trust is everything in the freelancing world because if someone realizes that you are dependable and they can trust you, that is what's going to get you another job. Continue.
yeah, absolutely. And I was just going to say, when I feel like I'm making up a position and just going for it, and that's what I've been doing my whole career. When I started, I got a degree in public relations, started working for my tribe, Cherokee Nation. We were promoting museums, and I thought videos would be way more interesting. This is when Facebook was becoming a thing, and I was like, we should make Facebook videos. So that's when I learned how to shoot and edit, produce, and host my own videos to get ahead of the curve. So this was making social media videos before social media videos are really a thing. So I think it's, you have a voice inside you that's telling you to do the thing, and that source or creator or God or whoever talking to you, and you need to do it if you're called to do something, because more often than not it's there. I don't know, but I like doing weird things that people aren't doing, and I'll probably do something weird in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
We're here to do weird things. Excellent. Thank you. Bryce,
Yes.
you kind of mentioned you've done a lot of the work, whether it's corporate, whether it's agency, whether it's short films. Like it feels like if I'm not seeing you on set, I'm seeing you on a set doing something. And you also kind of are one of those, I think, really great representatives who sort of finds pockets of productions, networks, crews that are constantly working to where you're really providing yourself useful and being of service, but also a really great collaborator on all these different short films and productions and freelancers and stuff like that. I'd love for you to talk about sort of, obviously there's a lot of hustle in there, but kind of talk about the kind of commitment and the path that you've taken to kind of get that work and how you cultivate a lot of those relationships that you've worked with.
Yeah, sure. So I think, I can credit a lot of my success to Dylan. He's got me on a bunch of projects. So, that's one of them.
All
But
right, the check cleared. You can go now.
you know Dylan.
So, and
But-
also before you continue, Bryce is one of the hardest working dudes I've ever met in my entire life. He probably was on 3 gigs before you got here today after we wrapped
I
yesterday.
think I was asked to be on the project that you're talking about. That's
Yeah.
happening
Yeah,
this
of course-
weekend.
of course
And
you
I
are, of
said
course.
yes, but also kind of no.
Yeah.
So it's one of
And
those
The
things.
results are always spectacular. So
Yeah.
thank you for the hard work always.
I feel like I'm on like hour 90 today or something. But no, it's a lot of hustle. And like if you want to be in this industry and you actually do love what you're doing, it doesn't really feel like work to me. It just feels like you're pursuing the path that you're given. That's kind of like what you're saying, that voice inside you. And for me, it's just like I want to be surrounded by good people doing good things. And in this community, I've found that. So to me, it's like, how do I, again, with like what Dylan said with the trust, it's like, how do I make sure that if I'm given a task by Dylan or you or somebody, that I do that to my best abilities. That way you can trust me to keep doing that. And why I've been like a DIT on some of the jobs that Dylan has hired, because someone saw that into me, like Dylan saw that, and then he's like, hey, you're good at cameras. I think we met on was that the Keeper of the Ashes show?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, the Hulu doc. Oh, man,
Yeah.
I've lost track
The
of time
Hulu
and space.
Kristen channel with
Yeah,
Scott
Chris-
Murders doc?
yeah. I was
words you'd never heard together before.
So I was an AC on that, and it's like you in this industry, you may, especially around here, you're gonna wear multiple hats. So I think being more malleable to being like, not like if someone's like, I'm just a I don't know, X thing in the camera department, but that's obviously already kind of like taken up, then you probably should be valuable to other positions that there's other needs in that department that still need to be filled with good people. So just being more malleable and being like, I can do that, and vocalize that, and just kind of, again, making those connections, making that network, because that's going to be the one that reciprocates back into you if you reciprocate back out to them. So
Nice, fantastic. I have a question, and this is a kind of interesting question. I think that will be insightful, I think, for myself, plus I think maybe people in the audience. Freelancing, especially in this sort of creative field, technical adjacent, or sometimes more technical than creative, but nonetheless, it's literally like if you only work a day, you only make whatever that day rate is, plus kit rental if you remember to ask for that, and didn't argue, negotiate, and basically ultimately do it for free. But either way, like this is not a contrary to sort of potential data out there, a high-paying, high-income job. Like if you're making $80,000 in the freelance sector, congratulations, you're probably one of the best. You also probably have all of the market share of clients essentially, and the rest of us are the ones making 25, 30, 40 maybe if we're lucky, as far as eking little jobs here and there and padding out the rest of the work. So it's a bit of a sort of Spartan life to live in a way. And, all of us in various degrees have learned how to live within that sort of austerity of a freelance life. I'm curious, what are some sort of crisis avoiding methods that as a freelancing professional, you sort of build into your work life, your social life, your whatever, so that you can enjoy it when you're working, but also not sort of running into that feast or famine period where you are sort of questioning whether or not to keep pursuing it and maybe fall back to the easy full-time gig or that sort of labor or service industry adjacent job. What are some secrets that I think, because I think every freelancer, they have their own method, but it's also helpful to know what each of us kind of do as far as like, treat yourself to one good thing, but save the rest, or, have enough of a sort of forecast for the work you get so that you know when to sort of avoid the sort of dry periods versus the sort of fertile periods, as it were. Dylan, why don't you kick it off?
I'll kick us off here.
What's your 401k plan?
To not have a 401k plan. But yes, do learn about money, like especially Roth IRAs for people like freelancers, because we work in an industry. So if you are lucky enough to get into a union, yes, you can have
Join a union,
Yes.
join a union, join a union.
But like I'm in the Producers Guild, and we don't have any sort of pension, health, that kind of thing set up. So like learn about money. A Roth IRA is great. You'll be able to put money into that every year for your retirement. The number one lesson that I learned from my mentor was unemployment. The day you wrap a gig, the next day you sign up for unemployment. It's money they take out of your check. That is your safety net until you get another job. If you are a W-9 invoice worker, it is hard because they're not taking money out of your check going into unemployment. So therefore that makes that out of the realm of possibility for you. But if you are on a project where you are signed up under payroll, which ideally great projects are, those are the ones you kind of really want to be on because they are taking taxes out for you. Unemployment is absolutely your friend. Learn to know your means. It is a little extra homework, but it will benefit you so much more in this life, is to actually learn how to budget and what you want to spend your money on. I am currently driving around a 2012 vehicle that I have been driving all of these years. I still rent because I have a sweet rent deal. It's just understanding where you should and should not be spending your money, because if you can play your cards right, you are able to make good money for a short period of time. And sometimes it is a long period of time. If it is like a television show, for example, you can make good money for months at a time. So then it's a matter of just sort of hiding the acorns before the winter comes, and then learn to live off that. And then as you spend more time in the industry, you realize that there's this ebb and flow, there's a wave, and you kind of learn to ride that wave. It's like this. So essentially it depends on the year, but just I'll give the quick and dirty overview of it, because generally like it's dead come the holidays, because people that have money completely disappear for the holidays and they don't give money to projects. So the holidays are generally dead. And then like prep starts to happen not too long after the beginning of the year, and you might be lucky enough if you are in a position where you can jump in on prep at the beginning of the year. And then once March comes, that's when projects really start to happen. And then sometimes that's when everything wants to happen at once, is in March. So you ride that wave throughout March. And then generally, once it starts to get hot in Oklahoma, like June, July, that's when projects starts to taper off. If you are fortunate, you can still ride the wave and be miserable every day on set and sweat to death. But then you kind of ride that wave down there. And then September, October again, it's all start to pick up. And then just before it gets to the holidays again, you might be fortunate to be on a gig to where it'll like shut down for Thanksgiving, come back up, and then you're in just before Christmas. But then like Christmas, New Year's, dead again. So that's the rough wave. It's just like basically learn to know what you need to cover to live your life. Don't be, but also treat yourself, like don't be a friggin' monk, just absolutely, treat yourself, but know what you need to exist, and don't be extravagant until you really get to be established and learn to live this life.
That's a great insight, Bryce.
I got something to add to that. I mean, this is a little bit different approach. I do think what Don said, all that is true, and you need to be accountable for your money. Something I kind of looked into things is kind of like your time is valuable. So like how you manage your time is also like an important resource. So how I sometimes like, again, like I've been quoted as like, Bryce, you're always working on the weekends or something. That's crazy. But sometimes even if I'm doing like a job that has no money attached to it, if I feel that the investment of my time is valuable into that thing, again, it could be a networking resource. It could be you're helping out a fellow person in this industry. And then like Roy said, you don't know what PA is going to turn into a director or some kind of producer that now has capital to do something. And that's happened to me a few times where I've just gone on a crazy project and, just to help out. And then they liked me on set, and then they're like, hey, I'd like to bring you on to this next project. And then I'm on a feature or something extravagant from that. So I think your time is good to use for that. That's what I would add to that.
Yeah.
And then I will add one more thing. Is like one piece of advice that was given to me is to make decisions that feel honest. So you follow your heart, because exactly like what Bryce is saying, like everything you say yes to, you're saying no to something else. So realize what you are saying yes to, and ultimately, if you're following your heart and doing the projects that you want to do, it's like still to this day will work on projects for free just to support the cause, train up people, bring more people into the world. So like, do learn to say no, realize what you're saying yes to, and truly follow your heart.
Could not agree more. Really good buddy of mine, Zach Cox, once said, man, all I've ever wanted to do is just make cool shit with my friends. And being down to do that and investing your time, sometimes for free, oftentimes for free, in a creative industry, leads to more work. And oftentimes as a freelancer, it's like if you were the last person in that role that this other person saw and worked with, or one of the last people, and they enjoyed working with you, you're going to be the first person that they think of whenever somebody's like, oh my gosh, we need a sound mixer. Who should we call? It's like, oh yeah, I just saw Royce on like the short film last weekend. So if you can afford to, your time, financially, whatever, I always tell everyone that I know starting out in the film industry, say yes, say yes, say yes whenever you're asked to do stuff. Obviously, don't get taken advantage of. Like if everybody's working for free, work for free. If you can afford to, if you can be there. But yeah. Also, sometimes trusting your gut means not necessarily making what seems like it would be the best financial decision or the best career decision, but something is telling you, no, man, do that. That was absolutely the case with this may be the last time, which was, I think, the first time Sterling and I like actually worked together. There was another job that I was wrestling with. Do I do this thing with these movie stars, or do I do this with some buddies of mine? And it's a job that seems like a dream and seems like something that I'm absolutely going to enjoy working on and enjoy the end product. And I went with kind of the stupid decision financially, and here I am now. So, yeah.
I think that's a
I
very
wanna-
interesting.
I want to
Oh,
add
go for it,
just one
Jesse. Yes,
more. I want to
please.
jump in on this. So
Jump in.
agree to all the things, and I would also add that you don't ever want to become dependent on one income stream or one client or one project. You want to make sure that you have a diverse portfolio of people that you can help and services that you can offer. So if you're wanting to be a producer, that's great, but you should have other skills under your belt so you can continue to provide for yourself and for your family. And then outside of being wise with your money, it's living below your means and saving diligently. Try to get yourself a cushion so that when you are in the famine times that you're okay, you have your emergency fund and you can continue to hustle and find the next thing.
That's an excellent point.
Yes to that.
I will. I'll also, add to that and what Royce is saying, like about the saying yes, and also sort of go back on something else I said earlier about taking other work besides sort of doc, narrative, freelance stuff. Is being able to have a sustainable freelance career means you basically have to kind of, and this is a policy that I have implemented that thankfully my wife has sort of given me permission, because it sort of keeps me from sort of ruling out chances that I think sometimes my radar is like, I don't want to do that. But we have a policy that's like, say yes until it's a no. And it's literally like, it could be like, hey, do you want to come shoot a car commercial? And it's like, yeah. And then also like, do you want to come shoot a documentary? And it's kind of like, yeah. But eventually it's I go through the process of deciding if it's worth it and interviewing and finding out like what the scope of the project is. And eventually it's kind of like the radar starts saying like, you don't really want to do this. Like you're going to make $1,000. You're going to make this much money. It's going to look good on paper, but you already know the scenario is going to go like this because you've worked with a producer like that, or this company that's calling you back has already done X, Y, Z. And I'm a big believer in prior behavior predicts future behavior. And I've already known I got frustrated in those situations, so I'm just going to say no. And I'm going to go do the silly, goofy thing that's less pay, but ultimately, like, my memory tells me I laughed more, or I had more of a creative, rewarding, gratifying experience. But that one car commercial I said yes to, like, that paid really well, and it also let me be really creative. So yes, I said yes to it, and it paid really well. And I'm not going to snub my nose to work sometimes just because I have too much of a vanity of certain projects or anti-capitalist bents or whatever. So that to me is, I think, another, to add to that is a sort of like, you have to develop a sort of sense, sort of a sixth sense to sort of when to take a gig that might on paper look like just a wash or not fun or might be miserable, but maybe someone on it that's going to make it a better experience, or also it does give you more experience in a field or in a certain labor side of it that you otherwise don't get. And I think that's a important, I guess, temerity to develop, is that you are going to take gigs sometimes that are beneath you or not up to your snuff, but also you build a more temperamental skin, or you develop a sort of toughness towards decision making, or even on the other flip side of that, taking a project that seemed like a perfect project creatively that turned into a nightmare, which I've had one of those in a few recent years. But I think that's sort of my kind of addition to all of that, is just, knowing when to say yes, knowing full well that there might be a no on the other end of it eventually.
And also, I think it's kind of a mindset thing too, right? If you look at, this position on this big documentary is below what I'm usually doing, but you can look at it as an opportunity to learn something on that position, then you will grow from that. So not all things have to be a monetary gain, I think.
Yeah, Bryce basically said what I'm about to is learn ego death, because sometimes, especially like
that.
early on, and more when you're like at the mid-tier level of freelancing, you're going to encounter this period where it's like, I've done this thing a few times, but I'm being offered this lower position. Do I take this lower position to still work, or do I hold firm to the thing that I'm wanting to do more of? And there are so many times where if you do the lower position, you can sometimes level up on the day. Like you never know, like, where you're going to get a field bump on the way, and you're like, it's a good thing that you took that role. And then like Charles yourself, like you were loading on on reservation dogs for 3 seasons, and then now with Sensitive Kind, you're operating because you put your time in the trenches doing something that you should have been operating, but now you're actually living the dream now on Sensitive Kind.
Yeah, I just to that specifically, I'm a firm believer that, in that specifically, the reason why was first of all, it was Sterling, and I already had, written it into law that if Sterling asked me to just hand out, burritos every day at Crafty, I would do it. But when Mark called and asked, and I knew that there was a bit of, apology to the offer, and I was still going to take it because I still wanted to be there, but knowing full well that to me, the biggest opportunity there was getting to be face to face with people in an industry that I had been wanting for the longest time to just have unfettered access to either prove my competency, knowledge set, and capabilities, but also just really like hammer the iron against what they know about what I know and be like, there's no different what you're doing, what we're already doing here. And we're just, the only thing holding us back is, a big 1-ton truck, I guess. But it's literally like, now you don't look at us and think we can't do it. Like every one of us who took a lesser job to prove we could still do the higher position have already done it now, like give more opportunity and access. And it does mean being humble. It does mean saying, yes, I'll get you a burrito, or I'll go do a coffee run, or I'll push more carts than I think I'm physically capable. But this is to show that I'm a workhorse more than you think or give credit to, and that anything can be done. So, and I think that's a very great attitude to have. And that's kind of, I think I said it in the camera department meeting, was this sort of attitude of humility that if you really want it, it's not going to give you a job. It's not going to pay you. But if you really want it, then getting access to it is the richest, rewarding level of income you get from that opportunity than if you were making a union local 600 camera operator rate. And the knowledge set is more valuable in the long term in getting the rate or the position. And so I think that's important for anyone who wants to grow in any of the fields of this industry, is that, you might look at a job and think they're going to really abuse me in a way that is putting me to work and, really dumping me to see if I can handle it. And if it's not physically abusive and you're not feeling like you're emotionally being sort of raked against the coals, then it might be worth sort of tempering out to be better out of that. So that was my whole attitude to that I think is pretty universal to apply. But
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Just want to add one note on the humility thing. Every project that I've pretty much ever been on that was something that I'm like, holy shit, this is cool. Oh my gosh, this is something that I can't wait to watch, and this is something that I care about, has always had people in positions that are way overqualified for what they're doing, because they, like me, care enough about what it is that we're doing to be there to help out because they're down for the cause or whatever. And also, us being Oklahomans, as a sound mixer, I'm often on a lot of sets where I'm the only other local hire aside from maybe a PA or two, and everybody else is from New York or LA. And
Dallas. Just
Right.
kidding if you're from Dallas.
but that you might encounter a level of condescension or an attitude that you wouldn't encounter on an all Oklahoman film set, that you have to choose how you respond to it, and you have to choose in general in the film industry. You're going to encounter a lot of egos. This is true of any creative field, but you really should wrestle with that question ahead of time, as far as like, how do you deal with this, and what do you say, and when do you say it, and all of that.
What's your tolerance threshold for disrespect to your oakiness?
Usually I just lean in hard and let them, I just, would you like some more rope? And eventually they figure out that I've been doing this for a minute and that I have some big projects under my belt, and that they've been acting like an asshole. I just kind of let them come to that conclusion on their own.
Yeah, very
It's a
much
good-
the mindset of work in silence and let your success speak for you.
Yeah. Okay, this is the last question I'll ask, and then I would love to open it up to the audience for questions for this wonderful panel of freelancers. This is a great, just housekeeping question that's really nerdy and boring, but is very important. It's a question we always are asking each other in between setups. Let's talk about rates. Setting rates. This is the most important thing besides just all of the other stuff we've talked about, because freelancing and also the rate you get paid for is a very important thing to kind of align together. And not only what your personal rate is for the job you're doing or the gear you're providing, but also the rate that the network you're working within, whether it's the sound workers network or camera, and sort of all the other potential freelancers that are sort of competing in the same space as you that might charge $100 less or offer a truck worth more. What do you think is the kind of proper protocol for both kind of providing the ecosystem for more creatives to have opportunity within the freelance market within these fields, but also making sure like we are not losing potential income, growth, career validity, opportunities by people who might be really good at the job, but because it's such a saturated market, they're charging 300 less because XYZ reasons. And you're now having to justify like, well, you're not getting gear, you're getting quality, you're getting experience, you're getting, reputation. So Jesse, because I know you're looking at me, Dylan, but I'm going to throw it to Jesse to kick us off because I'm sure you have a very interesting time trying to negotiate because it's based probably on hours or project or what they need for your scope of participation. But kind of, I'm sure it's also a very freelance heavy market too to try to kind of compete with. So
yeah, it's a lot of relationship building going into setting that rate. I think you need to understand who you're working with and where the money is coming from. A lot of the work that I do, particularly with independent filmmakers, I'm not trying to make a ton of money off of people. I just need my expenses covered. So I think it's understanding what their budget is and how we can come to an agreement that's mutually beneficial. So whether that's like pitching panels or coming to a festival and introducing each other to different folks that could be helpful. So I'm creative in that space. But when I'm working for studios, it's a completely different ball game.
A producer's one of their primary jobs is to negotiate and save money. Your job is whatever it is. It's costumes, it's, whatever, camera, whatever. And the person that you're often talking to and discussing your rates with is a person whose primary job is just discussing rates. And so you should try to learn something about how to negotiate and how to talk to people. But also the very first question that I ask, and I feel like Jesse and Dylan both hit on this, that like sometimes the budgets are what the budgets are. An independent film is way different than a Walmart commercial. The very first question that I ask always whenever I get a phone call about a job is, what's the project? Like, what is it? What are we? Okay, cool. You want me to mix sound these days? Like, for what exactly? And for whom? Because that can tell me a lot about how much that production can probably afford.
Nike.
Yeah, because a producer might call you. They might say, hey, I got your name from your friend, blah, blah. We have like a small doc thing, blah, and like we have these like small rates, but yeah, in reality, you're going to a commercial shoot or you're going to be on a reality show or something and you just got lied to. Doesn't happen often, but it's something to look out for. But always, always, always ask, what is the project?
That information I think is key, and
Yeah.
then I think another thing is just how much, what I usually try to do is a value-based situation. So like, how much value am I providing to this production, and at what compensation do I believe that is valued at?
Definitely a good thing to ask yourself.
And one thing I would definitely say is communicate with people that you trust about this. I get this question a few times a month, and people just like, I've got various projects. What should I expect to be paid? Because again, this is a wild and varied world here. So, like, if it is a television show, feature film, for the most part, hopefully it is union, and there's going to be set tier. Like if it's a movie that's in the tiers, there's going to be set rates there. If it's in the area standards, it's going to be set there. And commercials of it all, if it's a local car dealership or something, it's going to have less money than a Nike commercial. And if Nike is asking you to work on a project, shoot for the moon. They will probably say yes. Don't undervalue yourself
Yep.
if it is a large project. But then again, if it is some mom and pop organization there, like it is still okay to say what you're worth and then just expect to negotiate. So like don't immediately shoot yourself in the foot just hoping to get a job. So if you stay in communication with people that you trust, like to try to not slit the throat of the people that you love to work with and are hoping to work with in the future, then you can sort of have an equitable approach to it in terms of rates.
That's great. And the main reason why I kind of pointed it out was less about like competing within the community itself and more protecting everyone, because ultimately, like as you guys have said, like it's the producers and sometimes the project that are more predatory than anyone else as far as the competitiveness of it all. The danger is though, is when that one person says, yes, I'll do it for 200. And if that producer comes back, or if they spread the word out, and then suddenly like you've got 9 persons saying, no, we're 400 a day, and you've got the one person saying 200, then either the producer goes and says, well, you guys are all too expensive and we're taking this work elsewhere, or suddenly they're looking for more $200 a day folks.
But also, if you provide value, like Mr. Bryce does on every set that he's on, they're going to want to hire you over, even if you do cost extra, if like that there is. And weirdly, like whenever I have increased my rates, ironically, it's led to more work because I'm valuing myself more. And even if I ultimately negotiate down because the budget doesn't exist, just my ask is a demonstration of, this is what I know that I'm worth. This is what other people who are in my position at my level of experience with my quality of equipment, whatever, ask. And I know that, and you know that, and beginning the conversation in an honest place.
I have a unique current perspective on this because in New York, I mean, everything's stupid expensive, obviously. And then I worked at an agency, and our main client was Weber Shandwick, and nobody knows who that is, but they're the top umbrella of like bunch of other marketing companies. So they're one of those companies that be like, oh, well, that company can't work with Pepsi or Coke. They have to choose. But then they'd be like, oh, I'll just make another company that works for both of them. Mm-hmm. And then, projects from them would be like, it would be something simple as like a basic edit. And that's going to be $50,000 for 1 minute. And it's like, you see that number and you're like, wait, why? And it's because like the value that they believe that they're providing, they don't care if a competitor is going to come in and be like, no, I'm going to do it for 10 grand. They're like, well, you can deal with that 10 grand person, but they may, you come with all these issues and like you might not get the deliverables that you want and all these other things. So there's a power in saying, kind of like the saying no situation, and valuing yourself and saying, no, I'm worth this much, here's why, and then presenting that to who you're talking to. And then I think once they see that, they're already kind of in the game. They're like, yeah, that makes sense. And usually producers will work with you once you state that.
It's also a soft way to say no.
Yeah.
If it's a job that like you may not be super excited about, I'm thinking of a certain reality show that I worked on over a span of 5 years that I really, every time that they would call, it was like, oh God, like how much do I need the money? And so I would think, well, like what number can I quote to them that would actually make it worth my while, that they'll for sure say no to? And then I'd be like, hey, sorry, like this is my new rate. This is, but if that's too much, like I've got a list of other sound mixers in the state, and they're like, no, great, that works. Come on, see you on Monday. So also you run the risk of that happening, but so be conscious of what that actual dollar amount is.
Yeah, if they like working with you, the personality, like the position is always replaceable, but the person of that position, often isn't, like, I mean, on the sensitive kind right now, most of the people that are recurring from Res Dogs, and that's because of probably more personality than it is just their expertise, because
it's all nepotism. No.
But it's just, I think that's a big part of it. So your personality is a key point of this, and who your network is also.
Excellent. Thank you for those answers. Let's open it up to the crowd. Does anyone have any questions? Yes. That's a great question. Marketing yourself. How do you get it out there? Do you have a portfolio? I'm terrible at this because I do, but also I just hate the act of like spamming people everywhere and being like, hey, I'm one of a million. Use me. Dylan,
I want to jump in actually.
go for it.
Yes,
Jesse.
take it.
I get a little frustrated with the filmmaking community because they don't market themselves. I'm often in a position where I'm recommending people to projects, and it's like finding a needle in a haystack. And it shouldn't have to be that way. There are so many tools and platforms available to you to make yourself visible, and you need to use them. Get a free trial to Amazon Prime to get your IMDb Pro set up. Get in, get out, close it out. Make yourself visible on Instagram. Make yourself visible on Facebook. Just literally wherever you can. I know it feels icky to market yourself, but unless you put yourself out there, opportunities aren't going to come knocking at your door. You have to be visible.
Yes, I feel personally attacked by that, and you are 1,000% correct. No, no,
Get out of what Dylan said.
what Jesse said is 1,000% correct. Like, great tools. IMDb is amazing. It's a tax write-off to make it pro, just to be able to get your photo on there so people know what you look like, and then just market yourself. Like, just right here, you're sitting around people that could be like creating a project that is just coming down the pike. So always be marketing yourself as well.
I have a portfolio on Instagram, which is funny enough. I've only got one job from Instagram, so I get sad about that. But what's funny enough is like Facebook. I've been on Facebook, and there's also like there's other little different websites that are for freelancers to find jobs. Why can I not think of any of those right now?
Mandy,
yeah. I haven't done Nova. Okay, so yeah, so Nova's
yes.
obviously one. But I'm on those sites. But yeah, so on Facebook, there's little groups that you can join. Like, I don't know, local camera people, Oklahoma is one I think I'm in, and I've actually got more jobs from those things than my Instagram, which has my entire portfolio. So,
and there's also listings on the Film and Music Office website. Both
Yep.
the main one in Oklahoma and Tulsa also has listings as well. There's LinkedIn, which I have never gotten a job off of. So
I
don't say
have
that
one of
recommend
those,
it.
and I instantly made one of those when it was like the big thing to do, and then I've never touched it since. And it's so
Definitely. IMDb Pro is a tax write-off. Curate your IMDb page. I keep in iCloud. I'm sure that there's many ways to do this, but I have my resume basically at the ready and up to date, so that should anybody ever ask for it, it's like I can just immediately text them a link either to my IMDb or here's my resume, which includes my gear list and my rates. And oftentimes when people ask me about rates and stuff, I will just send them my resume, which includes everything, just to like here you go, like this is, yeah, because they may not have looked me up or Googled me like ahead of time or whatever. So it's just like a way of like, here's everything that I feel like you need to know about me professionally, in one document.
this reminds me to
And-
update
and-
my website.
Yeah.
This is also a good thing to touch on as well. There's kind of two schools of thought in terms of resumes. Like, IMDb is the great go-to, but generally
Yep.
you're still going to need an actual written out resume. I'm of the school of thought where I would like to see everything that brought you here as a human right now, just so I can know skill set are, because again, I like to curate people to where they fit in and where they're
Like lived in foster care for 12 years, like something like that, including like professional experience, like the whole journey,
No,
just
honestly, some of the
professional journey.
It doesn't even have to necessarily be film experience. I found some of the best film workers are people that have worked in bars, in restaurants, and in retail, because you have to deal with people, you have to multitask, and you also have to not blow up.
I was a bartender and then worked in a kitchen, worked my way up to sous chef before finally deciding to go fully
You'd be a
freelance.
really good film worker.
I worked at
two
Mazzio's and the
best
Gap
things.
before going into film, so
But in terms of the resume, though, so be prepared to have two flavors of it. One, just the kind of shotgun blast, like this is everything I've done, like even in another life version of the resume. But also do have a curated version of the resume, like this is the job I want, like this is a camera resume or this is a locations resume, just so it's more curated, because there are some more of the blue nose producers, especially of the old school, is just like, oh no, they're just a jack of all trades and a master of none, and I don't want them.
I've also made like to get a job, like I've pitched like an idea and like it had a lookbook and things like that to things. So they reached out to me as like, oh, could you be a cinematographer for this? And like, yeah, here's my reel. And they're like, also, what else could you provide? So things like that can be tailored specific.
Ooh, we touched on another great, you just right here, the Bryce just mentioned reels, like especially in the camera world, or director, make sure you're building your reel.
And know who you're sending this stuff to. Like if I get a phone call from somebody, if I get an email from somebody before I even respond, 99 times out of 100, I Google that person. If I don't recognize the name, I look them up on IMDb to be like, oh my gosh, have they made something that I'm genuinely excited about? Because if I am, then that's going to be something that I'm probably going to mention whenever I respond to them, instead of just being like, hey, these are my rates, whatever, that like adding any sort of personal touch. And also to that end, hanging out in places like this and spaces that are full of filmmakers, going to film festivals, going to the after parties at film festivals. I've gotten more jobs at after parties at film festivals than probably any other place or way that I can think of. Yeah.
Yes, Johnny.
Right back at you.
Thanks,
Right back
Johnny. You
at you.
too.
I went to film school. Technically, I have a specialized degree that is audio production for film and theater. That's kind of mostly BS and something that I created within the art school just so I could graduate. But yeah.
My school taught news, which was the closest thing, and that's kind of what I was in, but yeah, not really.
Sort of on contract or on
Agency
salary at
is
a
what I was
company, yeah.
on. Like, yeah, I mean, I've done both. I started in agency and got to the point where, a lot of my community was already going freelance, and I've always wanted to be freelance because I like the independence of it personally. But I have been at an agency. At the agencies, it was kind of, you're wearing all the hats, not just multiple hats. You're wearing everything. And I didn't really care for that. I like to kind of specialize in what I do personally, but that was my experience. Yeah.
I studied public relations, and so I've kind of come back to it in a full circle moment. But everything else that I've done, I've learned just out on the field, which I think is the way to go. We've learned so much just from getting to know people and being curious and humble about what you know and asking questions and learning. And I love being freelance too, just for the independence of it. I don't know if I would ever go back to a full-time position.
And just to kind of just give a general comment here, yes, I did study computer science. I did not go to film school, but what Jesse said, yes, we can essentially, for the most part, train you up on the ground for any vital skills that you need to know. If you have the bandwidth to go to film school, yes, please do. It will ultimately make you a better filmmaker. Like, I feel like I'm lacking a lot of theory that I could have gotten in film school that I just simply don't possess. But the know-how and the skills, you can generally, for the most part, learn those on the ground.
I don't think that Dylan is missing anything.
You're pretty theoretical.
Yeah. If it makes sense for you to just dive in, is what I would tell anybody here. Don't feel like you need anything, any piece of paper or anything like that before you do that. Just go out and do it. And I love being a freelancer. I have no idea what tomorrow's going to bring. I have no idea where I'm going to be, who I'm going to meet, but I can pretty much guarantee you that it's going to be interesting. Not always, but...
And you get to make that choice ultimately, right? So you get to choose if you want to work on those projects or not, which I really enjoy. So
There are times I think about just getting like a job at like Mazio's or like an abandonable job.
and then
that,
write
like,
something like Clerks or something.
Yeah, because like I hate working in a kind of 9-to-5 corporatized sort of structure. Like I did that a lot. Like I worked at a call center. I worked at a parking garage. I've worked for a lot of things where it's like you just show up from 9, you go home at 5, you sort of automate all the way home, and you're just like exhausted and there's no fun and you cram everything on the weekend. We still do that when you're working on like a set, but then you have like all these like wonderful periods of time in between where you're like, I'm just gonna wake up at 8 today, or I'm just gonna go eat lunch at like 2 in the afternoon. And then like you get to go through that panic of like, I should just have a regular job where I can get a tooth removed without thinking like, this is gonna not let me go to Hawaii this year. But it's also the best thing ever. And so I would never go back to a corporatized job or a sort of, I mean, unless maybe like it's academia and it's sort of a protest job just to sort of fuck up the hearts and minds of the next generation. But yeah, like it's a lot of fun. It's terrifying, but I don't think I was designed for corporate structural world. And that's even in the like video side where like you're still holding a camera and it's, you know, soulless. So yeah, I think
Also on that though, post-pandemic kind of just upset that whole theory of like, if you have a solid job, you have a solid job. Like the pandemic was like,
job.
never mind, you're not going to have a job. So it's like, it's still a choice if you're creating that of I'm going to do a 9 to 5, which is solid, or freelance. I mean, I kind of think of them both as freelance in a way.
Yes. Anyone else? Yes. Sure.
So the common wisdom, specifically the common wisdom in a place like New York or Los Angeles, is that you should absolutely specialize, and you should do that as early as possible, and like that is your lane. I love the fact that I come from a place where you are forced to do everything, and feel like I have done a lot of weird roles on film sets and stepped into the breach whenever wheels fall off the cart and we need this, that, or the other thing.
Yeah.
I think it's made me better at what I have specialized in. Again, knowing like who you're talking to whenever you're trying to get work, you know, kind of determines what you emphasize. But I don't think it's a bad thing for us to come from a film scene where you are forced to do a lot of stuff. I think that that's an asset, not a liability, personally.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, I think just find what you're passionate about. So just try to specialize more in that. But I don't think it's a bad thing to have a broad, expansive kind of array of skill sets.
And I will definitely add to that don't feel like you're trapped either. I encounter this a lot. Like in a more entrenched market like New York or LA, you get called to be a thing one time. You kind of feel like you have to say that because there's so many other people that will take your place. But here in Oklahoma, we are still growing, and we want people to be, we get so much better work out of someone when they're passionate about what they do. So if you're in a position, be it camera or costumes or something that you're just not really feeling it, you know, vocalize it. Let us know what you want to try. Then we'll try to plug you in somewhere where you're more passionate. So never feel like you're trapped in the industry here.
Even if you do move to New York or LA and are doing other stuff, we all know people that started out doing one thing and moved on and started doing other stuff.
And we have
Even in
couches
those
you can
markets.
crash on too.
I will add a little to that, but also contradict a bit of it, or at least sort of add a bit of an addendum is from my perspective. Becoming a jack of all trades is great. Like, I think it's absolutely essential, especially in a market like Oklahoma. If you want to be on anything closely resembling a set, at some point you're going to have to sort of be a bit omnivorous as far as what you want to do, and decide like if just getting on a set means you're catering one day, your locations the next day, or if it's working at a company, you're going to do their graphic design one day, or you're going to do the sort of, you know, food prep for their lunches the next day. All of it is great if it gets you in the room where you can start trying to decide how you're going to start funneling the intentionality of what you're wanting to gain from it all. Like I was at some point kind of considering a more sort of omnivorous path in the film industry where I'd go and do some locations work. Like I did locations on Killers early on. I was a location scout on Andrea Arnold's American Honey. And I've done a lot of location scout with Chris Kucharski on commercials. And for a while there, I was kind of like, half camera, half location scouts. It's everything I love. I get to drive around. I get to look at Oklahoma, maybe take pictures. They don't ask for a timesheet. So as long as I report back, I can just enjoy myself in this place. But ultimately, what I decided was that I did not want to do anything that wasn't camera specific. So I would become a jack of all trades, but only within the specific scope of camera. So loading for 60 millimeter film, DITing, media management, color correction. If a DP needed me to kind of offload their footage and do some quick color grading while they were shooting a commercial, that gives me more sort of minutes on the court, as it were, learning the path that I was wanting to go towards anyways, as opposed to being over in catering, looking at the camera department, being like, what are they using? Are they using Teradex? Are they using? But all that to be said is, at some point it meant saying, no, I don't want to go into gripping, or no, I have no desire to be an electrician. Because ultimately, like they've said in previous parts of the conversation, like if somebody does see you on set doing something more, it's harder to pull you away and put you into something else. The more you're doing it and the more they see it being done.
They've also
putting
gained your
yourself-
trust into that.
Yeah, and also the departments you're working with become, they might depend on you as a grip, and suddenly you're like, oh, I'm going on camera, I can't. You're either going to have to sort of lose a bit of work to get yourself into the work you want and the focus of the position that you're wanting to grow in, or you're going to just have to say, what specific are you going to become a jack of all trades in, so that you don't run into that, too much, but can't quite be slotted into the right purposeful position that you want to be. And so you kind of have to take as much as you want to if you want to, but then it's, at some point, if you're like, I want to be the head VFX guy on the show, then start finding out how to start cutting through that course of directionality. So, yes.
IATSE, and there's different flavors of that depending on what your department is and where you live, but definitely IATSE 484 for Oklahoma and Texas. You talk to various people, they may say different things about how much they feel like they've benefited from joining a union, but I will say that as far as a trade, as far as a working class job, I know that the rates that I'm able to ask and the rates that I'm able to get are entirely because sound mixers across the country historically have belonged to film unions, and it's much easier to ask for those rates when you know that everybody else is saying the same thing. And within the state of Oklahoma, like the group text that Charles brought up earlier, that exists, and we did have conversations about like, okay, what's everybody charging, and like, what do you provide for that amount of money for like a gear rental, and blah, blah, blah. And then that also led to more texts going out as far as like, hey, this person from Discovery's like calling around. I know that they're calling you too, and they're quoting this amount of money, but we all need to stand firm on that.
Well, in a place like Oklahoma, there is, because we're a right to work state, which means that the unions technically don't have as much bargaining power. And so that lets productions essentially kind of come in and be like, well, we don't have to pay the union. We can do it on our own because you're a right to work state. It's per wage-based labor negotiation whatsoever. And so there's no power of collective bargaining to protect any sort of wage protection or safety protection or any of that. And so if a production can figure out a way to kind of skirt out of the purview of the unions in a state that doesn't have as much power as a union enforcer, then productions like states like Oklahoma, because essentially they can kind of go like, well, we don't need a union because we're not doing a union contract. We're independent. It's a freelance. It's a low cost, low budget type of thing. And so it becomes a contentious give or take in that sense, in that specific regard.
This does not apply to working for your friends, but there is usually a direct relationship between how much somebody is willing to compensate you and how they're generally going to treat you once you're there on set.
Yeah. And then the other unions are, I think, the Teamsters.
So Teamsters are anything with wheels. It's locations department. It is animal wranglers. It is casting department. IATSE is most of the crafts. Producers Guild is just a cool club that has letters after your name, and you get screeners, but no insurance or anything like that.
Oh yeah, you get health insurance if you're in IATSE.
Yeah, because that's amazing.
And the
Yeah.
camera union is Local 600.
The camera union is a local 600, and that's an international.
And like the rates of those things are online, and you can look at what those people are getting paid.
Yeah, and it's dependent on the budget of a project.
Yes. Yes.
Welcome back.
No. No. In Tulsa? Complain to them for not hanging out with each other more often and talking and doing more stuff together is what I would say. But Dylan, what do you think is a broader, more equitable sort of solution to that?
It is a very trite statement, but it is ultimately who you know. It's probably going to be just that ultimate connection that lands you somewhere else. What you'd mentioned with the specialty eyewear, that could potentially be a specialty costumer in the costume worlds, because it's usually on larger projects, but generally there are going to be special things that they need. Or you might not necessarily be part of the crew, but they need like props alone has a zillion different pairs of sunglasses and eyewear that characters wear throughout a feature film or a season. So it's really all about networking and who you know, and then that will be able to make that connection for you and ultimately champion you into the next position, the next role, the next gig.
I want to come to more Tulsa Film Collective events. We're trying to break down some of those silos and barriers to get people talking to one another and working together. We're partnered with NYU and CEI to do a landscape study on the filmmaking scene in Tulsa right now. It launched a few weeks ago. But I encourage everyone to take the survey so that we can understand some of those barriers that are inhibiting people from working together and what opportunities are there to, I don't know, make this a self-sustaining ecosystem of film and music and all the cool things that we want to be a part of.
Also, I mean, it's obviously the world that we're in here versus like the world that we would be in living in a place like New York or LA is radically different. One of my good friends once, who had been living here forever, works in film, is about to move back, but moved down to Austin some years back. And I was like, man, like, why did you move down to Austin? And he's a little bit older than me, and he thought about it for a second and then said, I got tired of building roads, so I thought maybe I'd try to drive on them for a little bit. And everyone in this room, and Jesse and Charles and Dylan and Bryce, just everybody that puts things like this on are road builders. So sometimes we have to build our own infrastructure. I take that as encouragement, hopefully more so than discouragement.
I'll get you in just a second because I'm going to get your question. But just to add to that, I think one of the things to answer your question, both about finding opportunity within the specificity of eyewear, providing for that specific side of the craft, and also the sort of bringing the overlap of your sort of various spheres into a more sort of unified whole. And I think it's the veracity to go out and sort of put yourself out there. So if it's, finding Joe Hag or Neosha or Bo Harrison on this show for props, and just at the very least saying, I do this, I provide this, we would love to help you with this. If you're coming back, like, just please be one of the first people you reach out to is us, and we'd love to help. And then also, I would love to know more about this, this, and this. Because literally sometimes that's a great way to get into some of those weirdly like hard departments to get into, because they've developed their team and they also have a cycle and a rhythm, but also constantly need sort of the resources for their department. And so getting to the person and saying, I have something that you can use. If it's a makeup artist, sometimes it's like, here's some product. You have a lot of people with hair, here's some hair product, put it in their hair when they're doing some last looks. And the next thing you know, they're like, we really love the hair products, bring more. And then while you're hanging out, is there anything you'd like to know? It's literally that easy of a way to get into the industry. And I know so many people who've literally just become department heads because they were Aveda product providers who went to ask questions and are now leading departments. And so that's the sort of like aggressiveness, and also with the aggressiveness with your overlapping circles and the fact that they don't necessarily overlap, or some of these other communities do, is sort of being that one pernicious friend that sort of says, but I'm not going to let you all sort of devolve into a sort of isolationism. Like, you're going to come over and work on this with my friend, or my friend needs you, so come over and help us with this. And it's literally antagonizing in a positive way of agitating collaboration and sort of enticing each other to say, come work with my friend and learn more about them. Come open your opportunities to these folks, or let others come over. And I think the more we're doing that, the more we're building those projects or opportunities, building the road so that the road drivers and the road builders can all come and keep working together. It is more of a sort of connective industry and community, and not sort of siloed or divided up because, that's that side, or that's that community, or that's, that effort. And I think Jesse said it best, like everyone's kind of working towards the same direction and outcome, and trying to see this industry and this community and however sort of terminology they want to put on it. But it's a good 20, 30 years of work from a lot of creators and filmmakers and industrialists who did see the benefit in building the community, not trying to capitalize on it. And I think if the sustainability of that can continue and provide more of an overlapping collaboration for people coming back, people seeing the potential here, and also seeing their own potential coming up from here and how they can have opportunity, then I think you'll see more of that overlap, and not the sort of like you're having to pick who you're hanging out with tonight or whatever. And so I personally hope that that's something that is being efforted and can be pulled off. But that's just my personal thought. Yes. Thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thank all you guys for being here.
It's slim pickings. Yep. Well, I'll kick it off if you don't. You're in the right place. I believe that the visual medium, the fact that 100 and so years ago, some human decided taking pictures and running it through a projector at 24 frames a second suddenly made us see ourselves in a way that we might have not have been looking at ever before. And suddenly we kind of could start seeing through some chatter that otherwise we were getting too lost in, right? And so the power of the visual medium is such that it's sustained for this long. And whether you're Christian, whether you're non-denominational, whether you're atheist, whether you're agnostic, whether whatever you believe, the power of the visual medium is universal. It speaks to the same central core of what space dust is being sent through us at 1 million light rays a second, right? And so whatever it is you're telling, it's going to cut through any word, terminology, verbiage that you were just going to suffer getting out of here to here, right? So the biggest, most important thing is finding the community that can see what you're hoping to do with it, believe in the literacy and the messaging and the sort of intention you're wanting to sort of put into it, and then embolden them and enable them to help be their best and manifest what their best is for whatever your vision is. And I know in Oklahoma, there's a lot of churches, there's a lot of productions, and I know a lot of people who end up You know, I see them working on really amazing looking stuff, and I'm like, what movie are they on? And it's literally just the amazingly well produced opening for like an Easter Sunday sermon. And it's literally like a lot of creatives are already equipped and prepared and ready to do that kind of work, because laying a dolly track on a biblical, faith-based inspired movie is no different than laying it on a weird space vampire movie on Mars that's shooting inside a studio, right? And the only thing is sort of what you're hoping to sort of accomplish with it and how you're enabling and empowering the crew and the community. And I think in Oklahoma and Tulsa, if you're at the right place, where there are so many professionals who have such a diversity of background, whether they're educational background or their religious background or their personal background, they all want to work on film and they all want to work on creative media with their friends and their community. And so the best thing is to start building your ideas, start talking to the right people that help you sort of put it in the right breakout for how you're going to manifest it and see it come to reality. And then, really empower and trust and embolden your crew, whoever they are, to let them help you tell your story or bring it to life. Because you'll get an atheist cinematographer that might shoot the most beautiful, vertical breakout faith-based thing because you've let them or you've empowered them and they believe in you trying to tell that story. So I think just be bold and be honest and be humble and talk to the people that help you bring that to fruition, and follow the burning bush, as it were, that's telling you who to talk to. That's what I do, except my burning bush is literally like Dylan saying like, oh, no, or you should do that. Or me being like, all right, I guess.
If you're being called to do something, you have to do it and you have to figure it out, and don't wait until you're ready to do it. You're never going to be ready. Just go for it. And I'm a big believer of progress over perfection. So don't wait for that piece to be absolutely perfect. Just get it out there. And the more you put it out there, the more you can build your skills and fine tune exactly what it is supposed to be out in the world. But I think just go.
Exactly what I would say. Kind of relaying to what you said, Jesse. So how I kind of like discovered that I wanted to do like film work, I was in college. And my capstone, I decided to make a music video for my band, and it won Outstanding Capstone that year. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I'm good at this, and that's kind of what I want to do. So I didn't know what I was doing at the time, and now I look back at it, I'm like, that's horrible. But I just had a calling of that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know where to start. I just started doing it, and then met people along the way, and that's kind of where I'm now sitting up here. So.
Bringing it back to the film school question, doing is learning in film. It's a trade. If you want to learn how to do it, you have to do it. Like, it's the only way. School can help, but it's never going to prepare you fully for actually just doing it.
And one thing I would also add is there's a lot of people that you can create a script, a document or something. A lot of people that just don't like to read. So I would suggest some sort of sizzle. If it's a 1-minute video, it can be super rough, but just some sort of little proof of concept sizzle could help you as well. And then that can sort of give a visual reference for people that could support your cause as well.
Yeah.
I think one more, there's a number of workshops that are happening outside of Tulsa Film Collective. So I would just look at Instagram. It's a really good place to find information, to look at some screenwriting workshops that might be happening. Women in Film is a great organization to tap into. They're creating networks of people who are wanting to learn together. But yeah, outside of all of the above, just like getting out there and meeting the people, and yeah, you'll find your way. Bree Mullen and Britt Bendabout, thank you, are the two to follow on Instagram. And if you look at them, they'll often tag the Women in Film. And then Tulsa Film Collective is also on Instagram, and we're partners with them. We repost a lot of their events that are happening. So at the if you follow one of those three people or organizations, you'll find the Women in Film chapter. But yeah, Women in Film, is it Tulsa? Yeah. Women in Film, Oklahoma. I don't know. We can connect after this and I'll show you.
Yeah. If you, yeah, I think they'll post pretty regular events. I think they haven't in the last couple of months because of venue availability, but they're pretty active. It's very small and starting up, but they've had about 10 to 12 attendees every time, and it's a very great community that's taking off. And
They're also building the road.
yeah, they're building the road. So and having one more in the fold wouldn't hurt. So be on the lookout. Any other questions? One more question, maybe, if we've got it, and then we'll call it a day. Yes, sir. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that's a great question because that's
Should
a
I-
very important
take that?
question. Yeah, take it, Bryce.
Since I have too much gear.
Same.
I don't think you need gear as much as you think you do. I think if you connect with the right people,
You need friends.
you need more connections and network. As somebody who went the gear route of like, oh, I need to own this to get on this job, I need to have this to be ready for this job, and I still somewhat do that.
Same.
I don't think it's as necessary as your networking and your aptitude to learn things and your like your willingness to meet people and join things, because at the end of the day, even on these bigger productions, they're just going to rent from a studio or some kind of place anyways, what they need. So it may be beneficial. You may get a kit rental or something
I was
different.
going to say, depending on the position.
Yeah, you may
A
get
larger production, they'll be going through a camera house
Right.
typically, but yeah.
I would say you may get some money back because you own those things, but it is not vital to you succeeding.
And in the sound world, like, it is way more typical to own your own gear and to rent your own gear if you're a sound mixer. That said, it's like I have a second audio kit. There are some sound mixers that are just coming up that rent from me. Sometimes I know of sort of like sound company, sound collectives in places like Dallas and Santa Fe, where you might have a group of mixers. Maybe one of them owns a stupid amount of gear and then the others just rent through them. But definitely there are, if you don't have the stuff, there are ways to get the stuff. But yeah, make whatever you can with what you have also.
Yeah, I think to
Not gear dependent.
Royce is right, and Bryce is absolutely right. And that biggest thing you have to decide is sort of what you're going to start doing and how you're going to accomplish it. And if you're going to go out and be a sort of single source production, one man band kind of situation where, you know, you're setting up the lights, you're setting up a camera on a tripod, and all of that is within your own scope of creation of work and also providing the materials for your client, then looking at something that you will need for that to be able to consistently be hired and provide the work you're doing, like, is a serious thing to consider if that's where you're going to go. If you're going to go in a more sort of studious, developmental sort of work through the process of learning the craft while also getting more and more opportunity and access with the equipment, then looking at something where you can get more hands-on experience with the equipment without having the sort of financial burden of investing in obsolete equipment is an important thing to think about and pursue, because ultimately, if you find the right collaborator or even the right mentor, like going over and helping clean the equipment and service some of it might also help you let it go home with you with the weekend and shoot some of your own stuff and get experience on bigger equipment that you'd otherwise never afford to. And so finding the right sort of path that you're wanting to go in those next few years out of school and how you want to grow and develop yourself. And if you have the capacity to invest in your own gear and put it to work, or whether it's for income or for development and learning, but ultimately putting you in the position of growing and becoming that position, then do that certainly. But I strategically would buy certain pieces of gear that would give me more work, but then also let me sort of get more access to other equipment without me having to pay for it. So I bought like a DSLR during the whole 5D Mark II craze and got really low budget commercials and got more experience. And then when I got asked to do a bigger commercial, I would ask, well, what are you wanting it to look like? What would you want it to be shot on? And then I would know to go either rent it under the radar and be like, oh, it's my own, or ask a friend if I can rent theirs and say, oh yeah, I've got a XYZ camera. And that's a sort of cheat that I did where it was basically like I knew how to use a Arri Alexa. I couldn't own one, could never get access to one because there's not a house in here, but every camera's sensor sort of photogrammatically is the same if you kind of know the science. And so knowing how to photograph and expose well on a 5D Mark II or a 7D is the same somewhat science on a Alexa. The producer doesn't know whether you own one personally or not. They just want to know what their commercial is going to look like. So using a bit of strategic network dependency and saying, can I rent this camera from you, but I'll shoot on it and you get my rental fee, but I get the rate for the position and we all look like we're participating. That's something I think is a very personally a smart strategy you could go where you get more access without the big hurdle of investing in your own gear.
Also with that is once you own the gear, because I am a owner operator, half the time if you're not using it, it's just sitting there, and now you spent $2,000 on this camera, and some people will just, they're always buying the next tech to just stay current. But the problem with that is you're never going to be able to keep up. And basically what happens is I see a lot of those people that will buy a camera. They're like, oh, I got the newest camera. And they're not even shooting on it half the time. They're literally it's literally on a shelf. And so gear is important to know, but you don't necessarily have to own it. And it's, again, the connections are gonna go further than the gear. So, and
Yep.
as an owner operator, the jobs will expand, and you will need to know other people that have more gear, because they'll be like, oh, well, on this job we need 7 cameras, not just your one. So it becomes that kind of situation where you can't ever keep up with the demand.
Even owning a stupid amount of stuff, there's still jobs that I have to hit up other sound mixer friends to be like, hey man, you got 2 more of these, 6 more of these, whatever.
Excellent. Well, thank you all so much for joining us on the panel. I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank all of you for attending and showing up.
Thank you, Charles.
I really appreciate you all, and I appreciate you all for supporting the Film Collective. Please go to the tulsafilmcollective.org to find out more events that we have coming up, as well as some other sort of events that we're participating in. And thank you again to our sponsors and our supporters. Couldn't do it without you all, and also you guys. So thank you so much. Feel free to hang out for a little bit, stick around, and enjoy some snacks, mingle, network. That's what it's all for. And thank you for coming.
Thank you all.
Goodbye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.